And thanks everyone for joining us today. And our guest is Chad Tripp, the RFID Engagement Manager for Federal and Healthcare at Zebra Technologies. Chad, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Look forward to an exciting discussion today on RFID.
Appreciate that, Jared. I look forward, or I'm happy to be here.
And before we get too far into the acronym space here, for those who are not super familiar with the technology, we should get a quick primer from you on exactly what RFID is. So take us through some of the real basics for the uninitiated.
Let's start with something that most people should be familiar with, Jared, which is the toll system on our highways. So the RFID stands for radio frequency identification. And when you take a RFID label and affix it to your windshield, and this is an example of a RFID label, you affix it to your windshield, that label really isn't doing anything. It's serving no purpose when your car is parked in the driveway. It's sitting dormant. When you actually go underneath the toll pass and there's RFID readers and antennas that energize it, it sends its ID back to you or back to the toll system. The toll system then registers that you actually went through the toll. So essentially RFID, what we're going to talk about today is passive RFID, which is, it's a label oftentimes that gets its energy from some RFID sensor and it speaks a unique ID. That's as simple as it is.
It's a great explanation. So to shift a little bit more to our space, and of course the toll tag readers is technically a government space, but other than that, where are some of the more compelling use cases where public sector entities are already using RFID that folks may or may not be familiar with?
Any area where there's critical assets that need to be tracked. There's critical mission that needs to be accomplished. That's where RFID is being adopted in the federal space right now. So think about MRO, maintenance, repair, overhaul operations in support of warfighters. Warfighters need to get out. They need to have their assets available, whether it's a ship in the Navy or whether it's an aircraft that's being repaired or a helicopter being repaired. That's one area, but there's so many others. We all have trips from time to time. Some require a passport. So there are projects where, how do we ensure that the passport gets through the passport making process in the most efficient way? So there's a lot of different areas where having what I would call unprecedented visibility of where an item is in a workflow, whether it's, again, a repair operation or whether it's making something for a citizen, that's where RFID is being deployed right now.
And fundamentally, we heard a little bit about the technology piece, and some of the answer to this next question is going to flow directly from that. But talk us through a little bit why that RF-based technology is different or more advantageous than an old school barcode, which those have been around for decades at this point.
The old school barcode will be around for many, many, many more decades, and many organizations that adopt RFID still use the old school barcode because, again, it's a label in most cases. So you still have the human readable. What makes RFID different is the ability to cast a wider net. So if you think of fishing, you and I can go out, take our fishing pole and fish one fish at a time. But there's commercial fishermen that take out big nets and bring in hundreds at a time. That's really the difference between traditional barcode, the single fishing pole, and RFID. So there are processes in warehouse operations that don't really merit RFID. If I'm picking up an item to pack it, I'm doing a single touch anyway. I could easily just scan the barcode. But there's other areas like receiving, I don't know, 100 cases on a pallet, and not every 100 cases the same item. It could be a mixed pallet of mixed goods, of mixed SKUs. So if I want to do 100% validation on that, I have the option with traditional barcode of breaking down the pallet and having somebody kind of categorize all the different boxes and count them and say, oh, we got everything. Let's go ahead and put it away. Or I can just have a RFID portal there at the dock door that reads not only the pallet label, but also every individual case label, and within seconds validates that pallet.
And yeah, and all within one scan, right? And without the need to have like light-based visibility onto every single item.
Very true. There is RFID require or barcode requires line of sight. You need to manipulate the object. You need to find that barcode. You need to line up the laser on it. You need to scan it. It takes time and motion. RFID doesn't require line of sight. As long as that RFID label is within the range, and a range could be defined as 5 feet to 10 feet, whatever you kind of configure that read zone to propagate, then every tag in the vicinity will basically chirp, if you will, its ID. And yeah, it's a matter of seconds.
And getting back to your point about, RFID may not make sense in every single warehouse type situation. What are some of the factors that go into a logistics professional deciding where it may or may not make sense?
Yeah, I would start with if you're going to singulate and touch an item, let's say you're putting a case away and you're going to inevitably, just the process requires you to touch the item, one item at a time. Barcode with a wearable scanner works great. You scan the barcode, you scan the put away location, you put it in place. Where RFID really shines is where you have where you want hands-free. So that could be the receiving use case that I shared with you. It could be inventories, going through and actually reading everything on the high bay racking in, a matter of minutes, maybe an hour for a full warehouse versus weeks, days and weeks. It could be in packing type scenarios where I I don't want to take the time and motion to have to manipulate every item I'm putting in the box. Let's say we're kitting up a bunch of gear for a special ops team, and we have all the individual items are tagged, but you have to find where that barcode tag is. You got to scan it. You got to drop it in the Pelican case. You got to do the next one. You got to do the next one. With RFID, you could have RFID embedded in the table, the Pelican case, let's say, sitting on top of it, and just dropping the items in. You're going to have a display that shows you, yep, you got it, you got it, you got it. So it just streamlines and makes more efficient the operation of packing out some type of kit. So I think hands-free, where you have the opportunity for hands-free. When I say hands-free, I mean no need to scan, but you want to scan. You need that data, but you don't necessarily want to have to spend the time manipulating the package to find the barcode. So you can find opportunities, shipping, receiving, put away, picking. There's opportunities for RFID in every aspect of a warehouse operation. It's all in how you define the use case or redefine the use case, and deploy it.
And to what extent is cost one of those considerations? I mean, this is a mature enough technology that I understand that the tags themselves are not exorbitant cost by any means, but is there a cost differential?
Yeah, there is. The beauty of and what's driving the adoption today is actually cost coming down. So 20 years ago, a RFID label was in the 30-cent price point, and now in large volumes, when we have a large volume customer, they can get it less than 5 cents. So RFID tags are going to continue to come down price-wise. But 20 years ago, when I got into the industry, the likes of Walmart said, when the tag price gets to 5 cents or lower, this stuff's going to take off. And it's been happening the last 2 years. The prices have come down, and so the question then comes, well, I'm paying less than a cent, fractions of a cent for a barcode label. Now I'm going to have to pay, you know, several cents or more for a RFID label. Um, those for folks who are really looking for organizations that want to transcend their current processes and really elevate and hit their mission critical goals, that's no longer really a question anymore. They realize that there is a cost to the tag. They also realize that the amount of visibility, that unprecedented visibility that they're going to get, is going to help them really achieve their business outcomes. So it can still be a tough pill to swallow for some customers, but that's where talking with folks in the industry, meeting people who have already deployed the technology successfully, really comes into play, and it's important to talk to folks who are using it successfully, because most of us, even the best folks out there, it's hard to imagine what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know about the data that you can receive from this type of system. This RFID isn't just about transacting business differently in the warehouse. Instead of reading the barcode, now I'm reading the RFID. It's about really transcending kind of your processes, optimizing your processes. So we typically, the successful projects are the ones who used fixed infrastructure and basically create events that otherwise would be impossible to create, because you can actually sense movement, sense dwell times, and that type of information allows you to measure your operation. And when you can measure something, you can actually improve it. And a lot of folks in this space are doing continuous improvement without clearly being able to measure. And that's where RFID really makes it, it's just a game changer for organizations.
Just one more question on the cost piece. I'm curious if you have any insight into what's driven the lowering of prices on those tags. And the main reason I'm asking is I'm curious if whatever those factors are things that we could expect to lead, a continued downward trajectory for RFID technologies.
It's billions of tags being produced and shipped. It's all volume. It's 100% volume. So um, that's as simple as it is.
Talk me through maybe a little bit what some of the most compelling uses of RFID in the government space have been that you've seen, and by compelling, what I'm really getting at is things where agencies who've implemented it have seen genuine, measurable operational impacts.
Well, definitely in the Veterans Administration is one area where any healthcare entity has a need to identify their critical assets and make sure they're available, that they're maintained, that they're ready to go at a moment's notice. So yeah, definitely within the VA hospital system, we're seeing a lot of traction on RFID, not only for biomed tracking, but also supplies and other use cases.
And I guess the inverse of that question is there obvious low hanging fruit out there, either in the public sector or in the private sector, where it's just fairly clear that this would make sense, but it just hasn't been put into place at any kind of scale yet?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely within the government sector, other areas, for example, within laboratories, we're seeing a lot of traction and a lot of good results in tracking tools and gear that chemists or other scientists need in order to maybe approve certain products, or to be able to develop something new to support our future. So we're seeing lab tracking, chemical tracking, use cases in the DOE and in different agencies within the health space. And those are proving to be invaluable, because when a laboratory, a PhD type comes in to do work in a lab, they want to be able to put their hands on something and everything that they need in order to complete the work. And any downtime is costly, and it can slow down mission critical work. So that's another area, but it's across the board. I mean, we're seeing it. I don't think that there's an area where we're not seeing it, right? And so it's, when you think of the commercial sector, you think of stores, right? Retail using it. You think of manufacturing, transportation, logistics using it. But the federal government has a lot of those same types of entities and same types of workflows. and many agencies are getting ahead. To kind of put it in perspective, on the commercial side of the house, we're still considered in the early majority kind of phase of technology adoption, RFID is. So, you know, it's fair to say that RFID adoption within the commercial space is maybe 10 to 15% at most. So I think it's not a matter of where it's been used as much as where it will be used, because it will be used not only in the commercial side and the federal side. It's going to be used in every area. So.
And what tends to be those tipping points, for when an organization decides, okay, it's time to implement RFID for this particular use case? Since, as you said, it is fairly widespread. What determines, 10, 15, 20% and that increasing ratio?
Yeah, it varies. It varies, but I would say some areas that kind of stand out in my mind that I've seen is just overall desire to improve efficiencies, right? If it's very hard to improve something that you can't measure, it's very hard to measure something that is hard to get around. We use the term systems of record in enterprise systems. We've all heard, well, SAP or whatever, it's a system of record. Well, unfortunately, those systems of record tend to disorder. They tend to have garbage in, garbage out. Some terms that folks that are listening probably are familiar with. When we talk about RFID at Zebra, we like to use the term systems of reality, right? It's not that systems of reality replace systems of record, but systems of reality allow you to see and measure your processes in a more objective way, right? You're not counting on somebody to enter data into a system and maybe they enter in incorrectly, or maybe they post, they date it differently, or they timestamp it differently. There's all sorts of things that can happen in a chaotic operation and when people are under stress. So what's great about RFID is the ability for leaders in organizations who want to improve their efficiency to get objective data, objective source of the truth. And so again, going back to what stands out to me, oftentimes I hear what I will call like he said, she said, right? You have a problem, you hear one department's view on the problem, you hear another department's view on the problem, and management's like, well, I don't know, somewhere the truth is somewhere in the middle. Well, with RFID, the truth is in the objective data. You don't have you take the guesswork out of really what's causing the bottlenecks, and you're able to then make changes. You're able to use the same technology to measure how well those changes impacted the flow, and you're able to constantly, when you talk about continuous improvement, RFID enables true ongoing continuous improvement. And I think that's really the underlying need that organizations are trying to meet with RFID.
Well, want to talk a little bit about recent developments in this technology space. I mean, you talked about sort of the volume driven downward pressure on costs of these tags, and how much less costly it is to implement this sort of thing than it used to be. But what are some of the other technological improvements that we've seen in recent years that you see as likely impacting implementation and modernization efforts in the near future?
Yeah, the sensitive, what I call sensitivity of both on the reader side and the tag side. So the amount of improvement that I've seen in the last 20 years of how much power a tag needs to wake up and speak its ID, how well a reader that's listening for that activates that process and listens, how well it can hear a weaker tag, right? If you're our readers, our readers and readers in general can read up to like 1,300 tags per second. So when you have that amount of voices, if you will, digital voices speaking, some of them may get drowned out. So what we're seeing is just in our last several iterations of readers, we're seeing exponential improvement in the reader's ability to pick up those fainter speaking tags, if you will, which is a game changer. And it enables not only the ability to read everything and get that 100%, near 100% that everybody wants, regardless of the use case, but it also allows you to use overhead technology for a RTLS, real-time locationing. When I came to Zebra in 2017, our only real-time locationing capability was active technology. However, today we lead with passive technology because of those improvements in both the reader side and the tag side sensitivity. We can put readers at 20 to 25 feet above the floor, and we can get 2 to 3 foot XY locationing constantly on where the items are. So it's pretty impressive what we can do today. I just see it getting better and better. And because we're early in that, I mentioned earlier that we were in that early majority. As more customers come online and more customers challenge companies like ours with new use cases, with new and different environments that may have different type of environmental factors that we have to navigate around and maybe design around and improve our designs. I just see this increase in demand, this growth trajectory that we're on the beginning stages of right now, just fueling innovation. It's just going to fuel it, and it's going to be great for everybody. Everybody's going to win in the end.
Those sorts of, high fidelity, granular location capabilities are super interesting, partly because, I think when people think about location, they tend to think of GPS type technologies, which for one thing are probably not always available inside a warehouse environment where you don't have line of sight to GPS satellites, among other things. But I mean, what are some of the other advantages that an RFID based approach to location would have compared to something like GPS?
Yeah, obviously you mentioned it. I mean, indoors, you don't generally have GPS signals. So to be able to get an XY coordinate of where something is within a large facility is huge. Not every item has a RFID tag, but as supply chains mature, you're going to find, I think federal customers will too, find that the many items already have RFID tags on them. So we're going to see those flow in to supply chains. Let's say inside federal health and some of those agencies, there's a lot of push for RFID. So I think you're going to find that being something that's an enabler that's already there. But the other advantage is, with GPS, obviously there's outdoor advantages. But again, we with RFID can achieve outdoor visibility as well through different type of what we call crowdsourcing capabilities. So we can having vehicles on a tarmac that are that actually have a reader on them that can read items. Have systems that can tell what their GPS coordinate is at the time they read the item. And we're not really asking the driver of the vehicle to do anything different, just go and do what they need to do. And they have this system that's on board that, if you have 10 or 20 trucks on a tarmac going around, you are essentially crowdsourcing GPS type data for all your assets. So there's very clever methods that customers have used to be able to give GPS type of capabilities outdoors as well.
All right, plenty more we could talk about, but unfortunately, we do have to leave it there for time. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. I also definitely want to thank today's guest, Chad Tripp, the RFID Engagement Manager for Federal and Healthcare at Zebra Technologies. Chad, thanks for coming on and sharing your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jared. I enjoyed it.
And I'm Jared Serbu. You're listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Zebra Technologies.